Hello again YouTube and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla, and today I'm going on the start of a big trip. How easy is it to do with a Tesla Model Y? Am I going to be waiting ages to charge? Is it going to take hours extra? Let's find out. I've been going for an hour. I've done 51 miles, and just to give you an idea about what the weather's like and temperature, because those things are relevant, it's 10 degrees and it's obviously been very, very wet previously, but the roads now are mostly dry. So from an efficiency perspective, that means that it's slightly cooler, so you're going to burn a little bit more energy, and also the fact that a slight damp on the road just increases the rolling resistance, which again will burn a little bit more. So what am I doing on this trip? Well, I've got a couple of days worth of business things to go and do down in the West Midlands, down in England, so I'm taking the car. And I just thought this would be an interesting comparison with some of the videos that I've been seeing on the internet of, well, basically people who are not having a good time driving EVs. And it's not Tesla, which is the bad time that they're having. And most of it seems to be around charging. So having to find a fast charger and then having to stand there waiting for payment methods and things like that all to have been sorted out, and then handshaking between the charger and the car and waiting for that to actually start, and then when it does start, it's pumping out electrons at a relatively slow speed. None of those things should matter for Tesla, just because of the fact that we have got our own chargers. We've got superchargers, which are generally a lot quicker and a lot cheaper. So that's the Tesla advantage that I have talked about on quite a few videos. So let's see how we get on, shall we? I'm actually stopping near Glasgow tonight, and then I'm carrying on down to Birmingham and Coventry tomorrow, and staying in Coventry, and then working my way back on day 3 with basically a one big push back from the Midlands to home in Northern Aberdeenshire. So it should be a good test of, can you do a trip like this without having to think about it too hard, and without it basically adding a huge amount of time and stress and faff from having an EV. I've stopped in Blairgowrie because I needed to get a few supplies for later, but worth noting, look, we have got charging points. And we've not just got one charging point, we've actually got 2. So we have got a PodPoint rapid charger that's even got an AC plug, and they're kind of rare these days. And then we've also got a slower 7 kilowatt destination charger. So in essence, you've got slower ones there for people who don't particularly need a huge amount but give it a top up, and then you've got a, well, it's not a rapid, fast charger giving 50 kilowatt or so for people who need a little bit more. In my case, I don't need anything. I don't need power. I didn't stop to charge up for power. I stopped because I need to stop for other reasons. And I see things on various YouTube videos with people doing EV drives or comparisons to other vehicles, and they seem to have this idea that if you're driving somewhere, you have to drive non-stop. You never stop. My car could do 700 miles on a tank of fuel. I don't care. In the real world, you stop. You have things to do. You need the toilet. You need to buy things. You need to go to a shop, whatever it is. You are not driving non-stop, regardless of where you're going. So you might as well stick charging points in the places that you stop, because what I could have done was got out, plugged the car in, had 10 minutes or so of charge without wasting any time, and it's just sensible, isn't it? Isn't it? On the A9 west of Perth, now heading towards Stirling and then on to Glasgow. It has gone not entirely dark. It's 10 to 5, but certainly not far off it, although looking at the GoPro, it's much brighter on there, which is good, but I wish it was much brighter in reality. Anyway, we have got 47% of the battery left. We've done 133 miles, and I've got a bit of a dilemma. So if I was doing this trip basically as a oneer, so I wasn't doing an overnight stop, which I've decided to add in basically because I want to, but if I wasn't doing it as an overnight stop, then I would be going to the superchargers at Eurocentral on the M8 to basically top up and then carrying on, or potentially having gone straight down to Edinburgh to the supercharger there and then carried on south. Either way, the supercharger stop would be part of the trip. In this case, the supercharger is a few miles away from the hotel, and the hotel is still living in the dark ages and doesn't have any chargers. So I need to go onto the supercharger anyway, and it's just the debate about, do I go on it tonight and then go to the hotel, or do I go on it in the morning before I head south? I think I'm going to go on tonight because I actually don't want to get to the hotel too early anyway, because I've got something else on that I'm doing. So killing a little bit of time actually suits me anyway, but at least it's an option. This is the point though, more hotels need to put chargers in. So I'm going to drop onto the screen now this hotel that I saw in Stratford-on-Avon, and look how many charging points these guys were putting in. Absolutely fantastic, and will be absolutely transformative with regards to people being able to do as they do at home, which is charge their car up overnight. This is the kind of thing that we need, guys, not like where I'm going to, where it's a business hotel in a business park with no EV charging of any description. It's a poor show. Anyway, this is one of the prettier bits of road where you can drive along and it's still a fast either dual carriageway or motorway, with the light dropping and a bit of cloud on the hills. It looks seriously broody and menacing, which is great. So I'm still feeling fine. I set off just before 2, it's now just before 5. I did have that 10-minute stop at Lidl in Blairgowrie. I'm taking not the most direct route. It doesn't matter, I've got time on my hands. Just enjoy the drive. So we've just hit park. Let's see how long it takes to actually get the car charging. So, out we go. that gets started, and big clunk, handshaking done, and we're taking power. So I'm on an unpaired stall, so we should smash our way straight through the hundreds towards, I think it's a 150 max. Am I going to get something close to that? 139 I got briefly, then 137. Okay, that will do. Right, I need the toilet, so I'm going to go and do that, and I'll be right back. Standing under the lights, you can actually see me because it is kind of dark now. But as you can see, basically, there are gaps between the cars. So generally, people are spacing themselves out, and the reason for that is relatively straightforward, actually, which is these stalls are split. Okay, so these are the really old supercharger stalls, and you know it's a really old one because it's got a separate connector on it for a Model S or a Model X, where they've still got the old special Type 2 Tesla connector rather than the CCS that everybody else has got. So you've got a CCS one that everyone else uses, and then you got their own special one. If it's got two hoses, that means it's going to split the power. So basically, I'm sat on that one, and this one here would absolutely split in half the power if there were two cars plugged in. So instead of getting 150 max, you'd only be getting 75 max. So essentially, you slow your speed down by half. That is not something you need to worry about with increasing numbers of new chargers going in though. So already the V3 chargers, where there is only a single hose, so you don't have a hose on there for the old Model S and the Model X, they're already single speed 250 kilowatt max, so you will get full power on those even if you have got somebody parked next to you. And there's now V4 chargers, which I haven't seen yet, but apparently they'll do 300 kilowatts. I've been here for 14 minutes 14, and already it is telling me that I could go. So I've put in where I'm going tomorrow, and if I left now on 55%, I could make it down to the supercharger at Tebay and arrive on 4%, and that would get me enough time to be able to get down there. So it's saying there 45 minutes charging at Tebay. Well, I wouldn't need that, but here's the point. I could go now. I've done 15 minutes. It says I need another 45 minutes, and that would basically be 1 hour's worth of charging to get me from northern Aberdeenshire down into the West Midlands. You know what? If I was doing a trip of that length, I'd have a couple of stops anyway. So maybe that is 20 minutes slower than it would have been, but no more than that. But what I'm going to do now is, because I'm actually sat with, my phone has been going crazy while I've been driving now with 400 different messages. So I am going to sit here a bit longer, read messages, stick more power in the car so that I'm going to arrive on Tebay with more than 4%. So I could have gone, but I'm choosing to stay basically because I've got some other things to do. Okay, I have been here now for half an hour, so I got here at 2:15, it's now 2:15, and I'm on 80%. So even on these slower V2 chargers, it still charges up really quickly. So I've gone from what, 20%-ish, I can't remember exactly, up to 80 in 30 minutes. That's given me absolutely loads of, calm on, phone focus, loads and loads and loads of charge for tomorrow. So we're going to get to I'll be on 27% when I stop at Tebay, and then I'm heading down to I'm meeting in Coventry, and I'll still have loads. And there is some on-site charging, not there but at the other place that I'm going to, so I don't need to worry particularly about charging either. And also, have a look. So you know that everybody in an EV has to queue at every stop, and they need to be plugged in for an hour. Yeah, well, I'm the only one here. So there are 12 chargers here. I'm now the only person here. No queuing at all. So all of the people who say that charging is an absolute nightmare, don't really know what they're talking about, because with Tesla it's an absolute doddle. And I'm keeping this going just to actually show a point here. Right, look, so 81% and 49 now kilowatts it's just dropped to. So all of the public chargers out there, the public fast chargers, like those pod point units that you see dotted around. So in Lidl earlier there was a pod point, yes, and that was only going to give 50 kilowatts maximum. I have charged the battery up now beyond 80%, and it's only now just dropping to the maximum charging speed of those other ones. So again, you have got public charging for anything that's not a Tesla that's really slow, and then you've got public charging for Tesla even on the slowest chargers they have, and it's really quick. And that is the Tesla difference. Good morning, it is 8:05 and we are just leaving the hotel, heading south towards Coventry, basically. So I've got a few stops that I need to do today. I'm not in any tearing hurry, so unlike on other channels, this isn't a desperate race against some fantasy other car. This is me driving the way that I need to drive today. And by the way, the stops that I'm planning aren't charging stops. Yes, I will need to stop and charge, but I need to do stops that aren't charging stops, just like yesterday when I went to Lidl. So it's not always about going at 500 miles an hour and desperately trying to get there and never ever stopping. That's not the real world use for so many people, and it certainly isn't for me. It's 6 degrees and it's a beautiful day, so it's going to be a beautiful ride over the southern uplands and then over Shap on the motorway. Summit, 1,036 feet. What does that do for energy consumption in an EV? Not good things. You've got to keep climbing up and up and up and up. Of course, the point is, lots and lots of people seem really obsessed with how much power an EV is going to burn, how much range it's going to have, the fact that you're only going to do 200 miles before your battery explodes or some nonsense like that. You go and climb any hill in a car and your fuel economy will drop while you're doing it, and then when you come to the downhill bit, like we've got onto now, your fuel economy will reduce because you're going downhill and it doesn't actually matter. So there is a fairly clear to me double standard that gets applied between the way that people think about an EV and the way they think about literally any other kind of car. They're not comparing like for like, and it just makes me laugh. There is no need at all to sit and nitpick away at one type of vehicle just because you're against it, unless of course that's all you can do. And I know some people have got that kind of mentality. It's like that I've decided something because I've read it, therefore I'm really angry about it because I've read it, and anyone who disagrees must be wrong because I'm definitely right. And it's just nonsense. It really is just absolute nonsense. But can I just say, this is beautiful. We are dropping down from Shap Summit on the M6. The weather is mixed, shall we say. Mixed, I think, is definitely the way to describe it. It is definitely damp. There is spray going up off the road now. Lots of cloud hanging in the air. We are, what, half a mile or so from Shap, so we're going to pull back in now and we'll sit behind the truck before we come up to the Tebay services exit. So there is a supercharger here at Tebay. There are 12 stalls in total. These actually got upgraded relatively recently. So there used to be 8 stalls of the old Type 2 charger. So the one with the 2 cables where they split across the charge. So those ones, 8 of them with 130, I think, maximum speed. So splitting them, you were only going to get 65 when it was busy, and it was busy quite a lot. They've replaced those with 12 250 kilowatt chargers. So you have got more chargers, but more importantly, you've also got much faster speed. So instead of when it's busy, you're getting a top speed of 65. When it's busy now, you're getting a top speed of 250. So they've got 50% more chargers than there were before, and they charge at 4 times the speed than they did before. That is a huge difference. And again, EV charging, it isn't just about where you're plugging in or what it does. It's actually about the speed of the charger, and it's about how big a battery have you got. Yeah, you stay there please, Mr. BMW. And it's about various other things. Hang on, they have moved them because they were on that side and now they're on this side. Let's see how long it takes us to get charged. So take that off. Take that off. Yeah. Remember, charging's supposed to be really stressful. Trying to do that the wrong hand really doesn't help, but that's it. We're on, and the car is charging already. So what was that? 30 seconds. I'm just watching the clock now in terms of how fast it's going. It's ramping up. 148, 167. I arrived on 20%. 180, 191, 206. Yeah, so a top of 206. Oh no, 209. It's still going. Right, so that's the whole point. This place is relatively busy, so I've gone to the second to last one at the end, and you can see there's quite a lot of us here. And before, they were over there, and they're now putting their own chargers in. Had I been on one of those, then I would have had to have shared a stall, and the maximum speed that I would have got was 65. I've plugged in, and the maximum I got is 206. 206 is a much bigger number than 65, and this is the Tesla advantage. I've turned up, I've not had to queue, I'm charging at a ridiculous rate, and I believe the cost to charge is 35p a kilowatt. And what's more, I didn't have to faff around with an app. I didn't have to faff around with waiting for the car to handshake and to sign off and do all of those kind of things. Turn up, plug in, off we go. Oh dear. The weather's really fallen off a cliff. I mean, I know I was talking about moody looking skies and texture, but this isn't so much texture as just blatting rain. Never mind. Again, I think there are some people online who think that regardless of your own state of energy, or how much bladder capacity that you've got, or the weather, or safety, or sanity, that what you absolutely need to do is drive at the absolute fastest possible speed for the longest period of time without ever having a break. It's absolutely potty. I'm doing 65 miles an hour, and I'm not doing it because I'm worried about running out of battery. I'm doing it because these roads are slippery as hell, and even with all-wheel drive, there is an element of I've got my lights on, I've got my wipers on, and it's chucking it down. Slow it down. Some people don't seem to get that, and then you see them spun off at the side of the road, or in my part of Aberdeenshire, you see people basically with their car buried in a field. It's completely potty. We have come off the M6. I need to dive into Carnforth, which is in God's own Lancashire. It's like Yorkshire, only better. I'm going to stop for a little bit. I need to do a work stop and a bit more work on my laptop. No charging up this time because none is needed, but again, where I'm stopping, generally I'm working. It's a radical idea, isn't it? Not just going all the time. Back in the car now and about to leave booths in Carnforth, and I've just had a look at how much it costs if I wanted to use those Instavolt chargers that we drove past on the way in. You're sitting down? 85p a kilowatt hour. 85p. So it's great that they're here as a convenience, okay? Fab. But 85p a kilowatt hour is criminal. Is absolutely crazy. What on earth is going on in the world where people are sticking those kind of charges in and saying that it's fine? You know, I know the price of petrol and diesel is high at the moment, and it's been up and down a bit, and then it's going back up again, but that's still bonkers. You're not going to get people driving EVs if it's 85p a kilowatt hour to top up at your local supermarket. And here's the other thing as well, right? This is a supermarket, so I kind of get why you'd put a fast charger in. So the Lidl yesterday had a fast, but it also had 2 slow chargers, and they're always going to be cheaper. For somewhere like this, a lot of people are going to park their car and then they're going to go and shop, and you know, Booths in there has got a lot of counters for perusing of products, and it's got a cafe, so you're likely to be in there potentially for longer than you'd need to be hooked onto an Instavolt, even if it's relatively slow. But 85p a pop is just bonkers. Truly horrible conditions on the M6 just south of Preston. I've been on it for all of 5 minutes, but look at this. The sun is shining. It's been raining. Well, it still is raining, and there's just a wall of spray coming off it. So I'm staying well back from people, well back, and I've got my lights on. And it still surprises me when you see people who just don't think, and they don't back off, and they don't put their lights on. This van hasn't got his lights on. Are you mad? You want everything on that you've got so that people can see you when you're trying to drive through this. As you can see, the weather hasn't improved, and now we're in roadworks. The 50-mile-an-hour limit always makes people bunch up, so you end up with a lot of dangerous paralleling going on of vehicles who are just trundling along at the same speed, which is completely crazy. But the road surface in quite a few places actually has been flooded. I mean, we've just gone through effectively, you know, that's reasonable amount of water. And I also had to take emergency action when a guy to my left started wandering over on me. Yeah, it's this is eventful. I mean, let's be honest, this is horrible. But what can you do? Oh, I think we're all coming to a stop, just to add to the fun. Ugh. So, on this week's video is my run southbound to Coventry. And okay, I did a stop overnight, and I've done quite a few work stops, so it's a bit more disrupted. Next week's video is the trip home, and tomorrow afternoon I am... someone's broken down, that's what's going on. It said stranding car in lane 3. He's not in lane 3, he's in lane 1. Good. Ooh, Taycan, is that is that the MacMaster going past? Hello, the MacMaster. Stop complaining. So yes, tomorrow I am travelling home from Coventry at around 2 o'clock, probably in more of this, and going straight home. So tomorrow, on next week's video, is basically me doing one big push north, probably in not particularly good weather, probably in the wet, all of the things that basically smash your range up into tiny, tiny pieces. And my prediction is it's not going to be a problem at all, because unlike the MacMaster, I bought the right EV for doing this kind of trip. If you want to do it, just get a Tesla. North of Birmingham, it's raining again. It does keep raining. I'm going to stop at Hilton Park, and I'm doing so because I need a wee-wee. So I do have enough juice to be able to make it down to Coventry without needing to stop. but I need to stop. So never mind this, my car can do 500, 600, 800 miles without having to stop. Cobblers, you're a human being and you all have bladders and stomachs and other things that all need fueling as well. In my case, need the toilet, pulling off, there's a supercharger, we'll stick the car on charge while we're in the loo, maybe get another snack. And no, I'm not buying snacks because I'm using the supercharger, I'm buying snacks because I'm hungry. I think again there is this fallacy of people having to buy food because they're driving a car, and it's just nonsense. Honestly, I can't understand the mentality of some of the comments that I read. It really is from crazy people. So how do I get in? Over here, okie dokie. And then, ooh, a walk back across, is it? That'll be nice. Right. Swing ourselves in. So again, it's busy, but it's not that busy. So it is an eeny, meeny, miny, mo in that somebody is going to have their charge split, and I'll go the furthest one down and I'll stick it onto there because, well, what does it matter? There's 3 available and I'm going to have to annoy somebody. This is actually unusually quite a tight bay. Usually they give you a bit more room than that, but never mind. Right, so once again, let's see how long it takes to actually stick the car on charge. With my usual rubbish, I can't actually use my hand properly because genuinely I struggle. Come on, pull the thing out, push the button on the top, flap opens, in it goes, and that's basically it. Where are we on? So we've arrived on 18% and starting to charge. It's taking a little time. Now it's clicked. So what was that, 20 seconds? Somebody want to go and time it? So I am splitting the charge here with the poor guy next to me, so it's not going to go dramatically fast. So we're going to get what, 70, something like that to start off with, but that's okay. So as seems to happen so much of the time at the moment when I'm traveling on business, my phone and my watch are pinging like crazy while I'm driving. So I pull over and I've got to start reading emails, which is literally what I've been doing for the last 10 minutes or so. Probably worth just wandering past the non-Tesla charging stuff that we've got here. So this is Hilton Park southbound. We have got a pair of Gridserve Rapids. I'll have a look in a minute just how rapid, as well as a Type 2 post there that's got a couple of connectors on it. So I'm not quite sure quite what use the Type 2s are, because let's be honest, you're not going to be parked up here for long enough to really get any benefit from them. But the pair of Gridserve Rapids, fine. I bet they're expensive though, and I bet they are quite slow. Right, I've just moved the car. So I was on that one there, and I moved on to that one there. And the simple reason is, when I got here, all of the stalls were busy, which meant that wherever I went, I was going to be splitting. But when I've come back out to the services building, suddenly we have got an empty pair. So instead of sitting sharing charge with the lady next to me, I've come off, and it's increasing in speed from 63 kilowatts to 142 kilowatts. Now that isn't going to be a problem going forward in the future, as most of these old Type 2s are going to get ripped out and replaced anyway. But for now, it is just a tip that if it's got 2 heads on it, it's a Type 2, and you need to be careful about A and B pairs. And in my case, I was splitting, and I don't need to be. How much those Gridserve chargers cost over there? 69p a kilowatt hour. So okay, it's not 85p a kilowatt hour like those Instavolt ones were back in Carnforth, but it's still not good. So I've just unplugged and moved stall. So on an untied stall, I was charging at 134, it's slow to 130. So these are 150 kilowatt stalls. The one over there is a 50 kilowatt max. So if you are not a Tesla, the maximum you're going to get is 50 kilowatts, which, let's just say, if you've got a big battery, and a lot of cars now have got a big battery, that is going to be glacially slow. So here's the charging world for a not Tesla. You are getting pitiful charge speed, and you're being charged more than twice as much as I'm being charged sat here. Why wouldn't you just get a Tesla? I mean, it just makes it all so much easier. Have we really got another wide load going through this part of the motorway at 4 o'clock in the afternoon as it is now? Really? Come on, guys. Move your wide loads when the roads are quiet, especially right through Birmingham, where, let's be honest, traffic's quite busy. We really don't need rusty old railway wagon being trundled along, getting in everybody's way. So I was going to record this end bit outside, and I did try, but it's so windy that you wouldn't have heard what I was saying. So I've now arrived in Coventry. I am parked up at the arena where I am staying in the hotel. There is likely to be a room overlooking the pitch again, which is interesting when they give you those. Tomorrow, so next week's video, I'm driving the 500 miles home. But before we get to that, what has today been like? And the little bit yesterday? Well, it's been stress-free, delay-free, hassle-free. At no point have I been stressed so much that my nose is bleeding. At no point have I been waiting for other people to finish charging, then plugging in and waiting an eternity for it to start putting electrons in at any kind of speed, nor have I had to pay a king's ransom for doing so. All of the charges that I've had have been 35p or 39p a kilowatt hour, a far cry from the, 85p a kilowatt hour that I was being offered had I plugged in when I was in Carnforth. That's a big difference. So this trip has been genuinely easy. Tomorrow's one could be slightly more challenging because I am going basically home as quickly as I can. So it really is all about speed. But even so, I can't see there being any issues. So you need to hit the like and subscribe and the bell icon and all of the usual yada, yada, yada. It means that you'll get next week's video when I release it. And frankly, it also helps the channel because the YouTube algorithm will then push more of my videos out to more people. So please do that. It doesn't cost you anything. And there's not many things in life that are free. So on that happy note, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.